Hello and welcome to Dragon Bytes, the paediatric podcast aimed at paediatric trainees or anyone interested in child health. I'm Assim, one of the presenters for Dragon Bytes and one of the paediatricians currently working in Wales. This week we continue our discussion with Team Soft Landing about the international medical graduate experience in the UK. As a brief reminder, we were joined a few weeks ago by several members of Team Soft Landing: Nadia Baasher, Rashmi Mehta, Habab Hassan, and Jaspreet Sokhi. They spoke to myself, Tom Cromarty, and new Dragon Bytes host and international medical graduate working in Wales, Megha Jagga, all about adapting to working in the UK. This week they continue the discussion, telling us all about the impact that moving to the UK and working here has had on their personal lives. I'll warn you in advance, some of these stories can be quite hard-hitting and some may find them upsetting to listen to. We really want to thank Team Soft Landings for sharing this aspect of their work that often doesn't get shared with us as colleagues at work. Anyway, let's get started. I think we've spoken in a fair bit of detail about the sort of in work aspects of things, but something that Nadia had mentioned earlier, and I wanted to come back to a little bit, was life outside work and how that can be a bit lonely for some people. So I wanted to come to you next, Jaspreet, if that's okay, because you're someone who got married to someone in the UK. Did you find that your transition was perhaps a little easier, or did you have a different experience with life outside of work compared to some of the other international medical graduates that you might know?
Um, so in terms of, yes, I did have the support of my partner, who was very supportive and could see the struggles I was going through in terms of my work adjustment. I think it makes a bit of a difference that you have someone by you. There is still a lot of challenge in terms of the social aspect, just because even though you have your partner with you, the rest of the social life is very different from what you grew up in and what you're used to. So that takes a lot of adjustment. But the only difference I'd say is if you have someone with you, like I did, I had my partner, he helps you through that and it does make a difference. You'll still have the challenges, but there's someone to support you through those challenges.
Thank you. That's really helpful, Jaspreet. Did anyone else from Team Soft Landing have any thoughts that they wanted to share about life outside of work in the UK?
Is it okay if I share my bit? Yeah. So after joining as an ST4 and when I was in training post, my mother-in-law, she suffered from ovarian tumor, and that was while she was in Delhi, and we were here with my husband and my son. So it was a big sort of dilemma for us in terms of how we should proceed with her care. And initially, my husband made trips to Delhi between, and we tried adjusting. She had her chemotherapy, her surgery, and thereafter things sort of gradually improved. And again, she had a relapse within a few months. And after that, he stayed in Delhi for 5 months. Even before we knew about the tumor, my husband's father had died quite suddenly. And we always live with this guilt where we are not able to look after our parents. Our parents are away from us. And that's sort of another sort of guilt and grief at times which we live with. And at the same time you're trying to continue with your job, with your training as well. And that aspect probably I mean, it happened to me, but it happens to quite a few IMGs who have their parents away, their families away, and something as such illness which strikes at their age, where we want to be with them, or we want to be with their sort of when they are in their last moments as well. And you miss out on all these things. What you get is probably a phone call, towards the end. And you do feel that you sort of divided between sort of two worlds, and how you adjust to it, how you grieve about it. For me, it was quite challenging. Over a period of time, of course, you adjust, you do your bit, you do your part, but this is something which you do live with, and sometimes you live with your whole life with these thoughts as to could things have been different. Being in training, at times you're supported if you have to have leave, or can you go part-time. So now the training has improved, and you are allowed to take less than full-time training, otherwise as well, without any reason. But initially this wasn't the case, and quite a few IMGs who are there are hesitant to take less than full-time training because of the visa restrictions as well. I think I'm not entirely sure, but I think you've got to earn an X amount for your visa, and therefore you can't be less than full-time training. So for me, I was working 80%, but even then, I found it quite difficult with me being here alone, because you don't have the other family network which you would otherwise have had. You rely on your friends. Well, I relied on my son's school friends for childcare, but how do you go along, sort of looking after everything, and then come out of you continue to do your training as well? So that was quite challenging for me, and I'm sure there will be quite a lot of IMGs who would be in similar situation as I have been.
Well, I mean, uh, I just wanted to say that, I mean, I'm sorry for everything that you've had to go through there, Rashmi. I mean, bereavement and ill health, and then I mean, I won't be able to put words to it that are adequate, but thank you for sharing that with us. It's certainly an aspect of IMG life that I hadn't really considered before. The fact, I mean, we all can almost understand the loneliness of coming over to somewhere, but we probably don't put as much thought to the feelings of helplessness in being separated from members of your family who may well need your support. That's an entirely not an entirely new concept, but I mean it's a different way of looking at things, and it must have been very, very difficult for you.
Yeah, it at the time it was, and you don't realize that when it has happened, that you're still grieving. I think it was until last year when I read Catherine Mannix, with End in Mind, that I realized that I might be still grieving from what had happened. And it's it is at times good to talk about these things, and I think most of the time what I've found is talking to my peers, and because you spend so much time at work, your peers are the people whom with you work, and you've established a relationship, and those loving relationships help you to get through these difficult times.
Thank you, Rashmi. Nadia, I think you wanted to speak a bit about this topic as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm sorry to Rashmi that you had to go through such an experience, and from my perspective, I had a very similar experience. And first of all, I came here alone. My husband is in Saudi, and he still is in Saudi. As I mentioned earlier in the introductions, that the sacrifices that a lot of IMGs make in order to achieve what they aspire for their careers. You kind of, you're torn between my husband is an engineer, so he doesn't have the same opportunity as we do as physicians here. So, and he's working quite well back there. So you're torn between, like, I'm going to go and progress in my career. Is it fair for me to like kind of put a pause on your career? And then financial aspects come into it. You have to think about your responsibilities. So for me, as I mentioned earlier, I had my mom was with me and my dad. I'm lucky that I'm very lucky that they were with me. Other people, as Rashmi was saying, are away from their parents, and you live with this constant, like, is it, should I be near them at this time of their life? Should I be so far? I find that, like, with my family back home, like, I miss lots of happy events, sad events. You just miss out, and you're always kind of video calling and messaging, and you're never really there for anything. I was lucky that my parents were with me. However, it was such a great responsibility because, as I mentioned in the beginning, my mom starts to become unwell, unfortunately, with dementia, and her condition just deteriorated so rapidly from the time I arrived in the UK. So it was a struggle between having to care for her and also struggling with the fact that we were losing her day by day. I had little babies, well, at the same time she was 13 months at the time, so it was all this, like, yeah, sorting out childcare, sorting out care for my mom, and adapting to the new. Like, I remember, I can give an example. I was on a shift, and I was in the delivery room resuscitating like a baby, and my dad was, it was like 5 a.m. and he was calling me. After I stabilized the baby, I responded, and he said, "You just gotta go, gotta come home now. Your mom is really unwell. Like, not unwell, like in like he wasn't coping with it. And and you're kind of torn, like, I just can't, like, I'm the only reg on. I just can't leave at 5 a.m. And parents sometimes they don't understand what these things mean, especially abroad, coming from abroad, like how things work here. Like, we are barely understanding the system. Never mind say your parents. So dealing with all those, and then the other impact for me was, like, I came here specifically for the training number, and I was encountering so much stress in that first year to work on all the things that is required to make the application for the training, in terms of the APLS, getting that done, the LLS. Like, the APLS, I had to go all the way to Glasgow to do it. I had to spend 2 nights in Glasgow because I couldn't get a booking anywhere else, and I needed it prior to my application for training. Getting the NLS, getting the safeguarding stuff, getting, like, all your application together, and then going for the interview. At that time, it was like a face-to-face interview, similar to the MRCPCH exam. So I was constantly stressing about, like, I've made this whole disruption and change to everybody's life because I wanted this training so much. And you feel like you have added stresses going to the interview, that, like, if I come out of this interview and I don't get a training number, you feel you're going to disappoint everyone around you, although it's not the case. Like, everyone around me was super supportive, but you have that added burden on yourself that I've made all this change. And it was quite a stressful time, and at the same time you're learning and you're acquiring new skills and learning. And the often comments that got told to me were that you wouldn't know that all that's happening. You're always smiling, you're always, very calm, very relaxed. And that, again, although I'm thankful for that, like, I have that in my character, but I think that again comes from a background of INGs, as in you're not taught to, like, say, like, I'm struggling. Can I can I go 60%? can I be helped in some way? You're always, you feel you have to put up this guard that I'm okay, I'm fine, I can keep powering through, I'm fine, and you're like, you're like, you're looked at as, you're not, if you ask for help, you're less competent. However, it's not the way. So this is one of our aims in our project, is to to explain to people that it's fine to ask for help and where to seek that help. I was lucky enough to be where I was. But I have colleagues, I have lots of people who have contacted me from across the country, struggling with their supervisors, struggling with their departments. Some people, like, I don't know them personally, just randomly off social media networks, they say to me, like, I just want to ask, I need your advice on this. This has happened. This has happened. All people in similar situations. However, they didn't get the same support as I did. I remember one of my consultants at the Royal London sitting down with me, and they could see, like, one of the things I got the chicken pox while I was doing it, and I still have the scars in that year. And at the Royal London, they believed it's like a kind of like a second time you got it. Although I don't remember getting it as a child, to be fair. But that you can, if you're so stressed and so immuno, that you can get chickenpox a second time. I said I knew there was shingles, but I didn't know you could get. So yeah, and then one of my consultants was talking to me, and she said, like, something which Rashmi mentioned now. She said living like with or having to deal with dementia is an ongoing grieving process, and I agree. It's your constant. It's not like death. There's closure, but dementia is an ongoing. So not to talk too much about, but it's just to put into perspective the things that we, and then at the same time, not trying not to show that at work at any cost, like trying always, I'm powering through, I'm fine. Like everyone used to always say to me, you're always smiling, you're always so calm, you're always so relaxed. But there's so much tension and so much stress going on. I did lose a lot of weight though, which was good from that, and I'm trying to get it off now when I can. So yeah, and sorry for talking so much, and thank you.
No, thank you for sharing all of that with us, Nadia. Yet again, I don't know if I can put into words, like how much that your story moves me emotionally to hear that you had to go through all that at the same time as doing everything else. Um, I mean, I could spend all day talking about the experiences that international medical graduates have, but I think for the sake of time, I think we'll have a quick chat with Habab and Jaspreet about their thoughts, and then we'll talk hopefully about the far more positive experience that will be the Team Soft Landing project. So is it okay if we go to you first, Jaspreet? I think you had something that you wanted to say as well.
So I'll keep it short because quite similar to what everyone else has expressed. So as you know, I have my husband with me, and so I have one bonus in that aspect. I think as IMGs, we really don't know how to ask for help. We're so used to just not being allowed that time off work from where we come from that we don't realize that sometimes we need to take care of ourselves, even though getting the training number and getting a post is so important to us. We do need to make sure we take care of ourselves. So I had a significant loss in September last year, just as I was changing rotations. And to be honest, I really didn't know how to ask for help from work. It was me and my husband, and we just didn't know who to ask for help. I went to my educational supervisor, and I think I really have to thank the trust I work for, St. George's. They were amazing. They didn't make me feel the difference between being a trainee and a non trainee. They really supported me and gave me time off to deal with what I was going through. And I think that's a very important thing for all IMGs to be aware of, that yes, you may not be a trainee, but you're still a human being, and you have the same rights, and your trust will support you. But you need to be able to ask for that support, because you have to remember at the end of the day, you're human first and then a doctor. I know we're all striving to get the training number to get into the system, but take care of yourself first, because that's the only way you're going to get where you need to be.
Thank you, Jaspreet. And I think that's really helpful advice. And I'm sure we'll hear that mirrored again when we talk a bit more about the project. But it's always important to seek help when you need it. Certainly in the UK, taking care of ourselves is something that the culture in general tends to be quite bad at. So there's a big push towards recognizing when we need that extra support. Habab, I think you had your hand up earlier. I don't know if you still had something that you wanted to say before we move on.
Um, It's just the same, the same. I think it has been all said. I would like to mention or highlight to raise awareness about few points. As an IMG doctors, we all came from countries which is some sort of unstable politically and economically. So always we have like great part of our minds is just been occupied with the bad news that coming day after day from our home countries. Me personally, when I came in 2019, it was coinciding with Sudanese revolution at that time, and during the first few months when I started working in the NHS, the big massacre which has happened in Khartoum, I was quite stressed out, quite anxious, quite sad, like grieving so badly. But I haven't spoken at that time to any one of my colleagues or one of the department regarding what I have been going through and what my country has been going through at that point, till I reached a breaking point when I start crying in the middle of my shift. So it was like for the first time of my life, I couldn't handle like my emotional. I couldn't keep the things separated, my personal life or the bad news I'm receiving from my home country and my work life. For the first time, to feel like paralyzed and shocked, and I can't deal with this huge amount of emotions with the lack of social support. This was like a disaster for me till which had made me going into that breaking point. I'm also thankful to the consultant on that day, Dr. Rashmi, and my registrar at that day was Brenda, who just sit down and calmed me, took the plebe out of me, and asked me to go home. What they did was quite heartwarming because I had the feeling of profound social isolation at that point, and I was quite surprised by the support I got from the other team members. At the same day, they calling me, checking on me, asking about my family back home, because they were all or the whole Sudan was under fire at that time, and there was no network support, no internet connection, and you can't call your family and ask if they are well and good or no. A lot of bad news are coming back from Sudan. So I think we need to raise awareness among our even like the non-IMG community that IMG doctor might need like more special attention, more special support regarding what are they going through. And as Jaspreet has kindly mentioned, educational supervisors and and line manager, all of this stuff are not only for academic purposes or work related purposes. If you if you are going through a difficult or rough time during your life, even your personal life, it's your right to go and speak up your mind and ask for 1 day or 2 days off or 3 days off. It will make a huge difference, and it will affect your recovery or going back to normal again.
Thank you again, Habab. And yet again, just something entirely new to think about that wouldn't have occurred to me as much before. And I don't mean to sound like I'm that thoughtless a person normally, but it's interesting to think that no matter how politically minded you may well be as a UK resident, that the sort of emotional closeness you would have to Sudan and everything that's happened there would of course affect you far more than it would affect people here. I think about whenever there's political upheaval in Pakistan, which is my family's country of origin. I have an almost emotional distance to the place because I was never born or raised there. So even though it means a lot to me and I can find it upsetting, I've still got a degree of distance because to me, my home's the UK and this is where everyone I'm close to resides. But my cousins who are raised in Pakistan and have come over to the UK have an entirely different reaction to the same thing. And now to think of that exact same scenario, but in the context of the colleagues I'm working with, and the fact that a distant war or political movement might have emotional consequences for the international graduates around me that it would not necessarily have for those who've been brought up here is something that I really should be paying more attention to, and I'm really glad that you've brought that up. So thank you all for those stories. I mean, I could talk all day about the international medical graduate experiences, and I mean, it's just incredible stuff that we're speaking about here. But also to try and to get to what we want to talk about, which is this amazing project that your group has set up together, Team Soft Landings, and because that's a much more positive message. And thank you again to Jaspreet, Habab, Rashmi, and Nadia for sharing those stories with us. Please join us again next week for the final part of our chat with Team Soft Landing, all about their new project. That's all for this week. Thank you for listening to Dragon Bytes.